Hey, what's up everybody? And welcome back to my channel. And today we have an interesting topic to talk about, is RESP, which is Register Education Savings Plan. Now, if you are thinking about starting a family, you're investing for your kids, and you are a parent, you must have heard of RESP in Canada. So this is a special account that allows you to invest for education purposes. So you can use that money later on in your life or your child's life for education. And you can also contribute to your child's education very early on as well. So if you have been on my channel for a while, you'll know that I talk a lot about TFSA, RRSP, and also a regular investing account. In fact, I have like a coaching program designed just to help you maximize those three accounts. And I didn't really touch on RESP. And the reason is because it is much more restricting and there are limited options when it comes to invest. I probably only made one video so far on this topic, which is about the scam for RESPs when it comes to administrative fees and so on. So if you're able to avoid that scam, then that's great. And if you choose to manage your own RESP, then this video is for you. So this is really the RESP 101 video. So we'll be going through approximately 10 slides and we'll start from the basics. Who can open an RESP? Let's switch over to the slides here. So anyone can open an RESP account for the child. Parents, guardians, grandparents, other relatives, or friends. So it's good to know that more than one person can open an RESP account, which is great. And while you can open a plan for a child, you can also name yourself or another adult as a beneficiary. So this will become important later on when you are trying to invest for your education in the future. So not necessarily for your child, but for yourself. Now, I think it is possible that you derive benefits from the RESP by naming yourself as the beneficiary. But I think in practice, most of us are going to set up RESP for our kids. So moving that along, how long can you have an RESP for? Now you can make contributions into an RESP until 31 years after you opened it. So at that time, you can transfer RESP into a single plan, and you would have until the end of the 35th year that it was first opened to use the funds before it expires. So this means you can actually invest when your kid is age 0 all the way to a PhD. So usually people get their PhD around 30. If they are looking to get their master's degree, then it's around 22 to 24. If they're just looking for university, it would be 21 years old when they're done. Now, in high school, if the child chooses not to continue their education after high school, you can wait a little to see if they change their mind. If RESP accounts can stay open up to 36 years, so that means as long as they still decide to pursue that higher education later on, then they can still use it. If you're sure the beneficiary will not be using the money in the future, then you can transfer the accounts from one RESP account to another. Now, technically, I do think it is possible to open your RESP account later than year 0, like for example, year 5, then that means your child can have the RESP account open until year 40, which gives it plenty of room to use it at a later stage. So let's talk about what's important, the contribution limit. So from 1998, the first year that the program started, to 2006, the annual contribution limit is around $4,000. Now from 2007 up till today, there's actually no annual contribution limit, and the lifetime contribution has been increased to $50,000. Great. So that means it is possible that on day 0, when your child is born, you put in $50,000 all in the get-go. Now, when you're looking at a lot of RESP plans, they kind of talk about monthly contribution. You want to put in $5, $10 a month or whatnot to contribute to your child's college tuition. But if you think about the time value of money, investing earlier is better, then you actually want to put more money up front as much as possible and then just leave it alone. So when you think about a strategy, which I'll talk about that later, you want to put money early on if you are able to, leave it alone for many years, ride out many waves, and then in the end, you just take the money out. So you don't need to worry about all the administrative headache with monthly contributions. You don't need to worry about having some idle cash in your bank that is not put to use. You don't need to worry about the RESP plan provider is taking a lot of fees from your account because you just do it right in the beginning from the get-go if you are able to, as much as possible. Later on, I'll give you a calculation that will show how powerful it is to invest early on, like probably in the first 1 to 2 years, and just get this part done and knowing that your children are taken care of for the next 20 years. Okay, so make sure you stay till the end of the video. So one interesting thing about our ESP is that there's no annual contribution limit, but you can receive something called the Canada Education Savings Grant, CESG, only for the first 2,500 contributions per year, up to the first 5,000 in contributions, if sufficient carry forward room exists. And any contributions over these amounts will not receive any CESG for the current year or any subsequent year. So all contributions exceeding the 50,000 limit will not attract any grants, even if the maximum 7,200 of the grant is not reached. So I think there is some government incentive that you'll be getting some money if you are contributing as well. I think there is a calculation that I have attached later on in the next slide. But basically, the government will be helping to contribute some money as well. So we'll see if that is very significant. So continuing on, any savings that remains in your RESP account when it closes will be handled as follow. So first, money received from the CESG or Canada Learning Bond will be returned to the government. And any personal savings in the account will be returned to the person who opened the plan. That means the CESG you receive from the government, you actually don't get to keep it. So that's important. Interest earned on both personal savings and government grants will be returned to you if all of the following apply. First, all children named in the plan are at least 21 years old and are not eligible for the educational assistance payment. The subscriber is a Canadian resident, and the RESP was opened at least 10 years ago. For this slide, the goal here is really if you want to take advantage of the CESG grant from Canada, then you need to contribute over a period of time, but it's basically an interest-free loan for however many years that you contribute and you still qualify for it. Let's talk about the limit. When you look at this slide, the focus is really the 2007 or later, which is 2,500 with $500 carry forward room. And here you can see the annual maximum CESG is actually 1,000, which is 20% of 5,000. So if you put in $5,000, then you get a 1,000 from the government. So this gives you the feeling that, hey, perhaps you do want to get that grant from the government. Now, in the diagram below, you'll also see the maximum amount of additional CESG that you can get based on your income. But I wouldn't worry too much about that. And if you want to look at it, just pause the video. So for CESG, you get approximately, let's say, 1,000 Canadian interest-free loan a year. And you can get that up to $7,200 per child. So this is like receiving a $7,200 loan from the government across 7 years. And when you compare that to you investing $7,000 in the very beginning, it is probably more advantageous to invest in the beginning and let compound interest work for you instead of waiting for the government to give you that money. So that really depends on your strategy. If you don't have that cash today and you kind of need to contribute over a period of time, then of course, by all means, you can take advantage of the grant. If you have the money, then you can just put it in immediately and just use a set and forget strategy. Next, let's talk about overcontribution. Now, overcontribution occurs when the total contributions made to a beneficiary in one or more RESP accounts exceed the lifetime limit of $50,000. So as of the time I'm recording this video, make sure you don't go over the $50,000 mark. When an overcontribution occurs, you will be required to pay tax in 1% per month on your share of overcontribution until it is withdrawal. So like TFSA and RSP, the penalty is pretty hefty. So make sure you just stick with the $50,000 mark. So how is RESP taxed? So this is probably the important part and also the key advantage of using an RESP account. So for the child who continues education after high school, your money grows tax-free while it is in your RESP account. Now, you do not get a tax deduction for the money you put into an RESP, and the money that your investment earns while it is in an RESP will not get taxed until it is taken out to pay for your children's education. Basically, this is like a hybrid RRSP and TFSA account. And money paid out of the RESP as an educational assistance payment is taxed in the hands of the student. So the student might have really low income, so it's good anyways. And since many students have little to no income, they can usually withdraw the money tax-free. And money that you put into your RESP account is returned to you tax-free. Okay, so let me just summarize that since there are a couple of rules that are important here. So first, no tax deduction. So it's very similar to a TFSA account where you put after-tax money in. Second, grow tax-free, which is true for all three registers account like TFSA, RRSP, RESP. And then the third one, you get taxed when you take it out. So this is similar to a RRSP account, and it is less advantageous to RRSP. So that means if you're planning for your retirement and your portfolio, you want to grow your RRSP first, because when you put money in, you actually get a tax deduction. So if you're a high income earner, you want to put money into your RRSP account, maximizing that first. And then if you have any additional cash, then put it into your RESP account for your kid. Now, of course, there are also other restrictions with RESP, like how long the accounts you can have, like what you need to use it for, so on and so forth, which makes it less attractive than RRSP. So let's talk about investing strategy. So knowing me, the first question you would probably ask is, can you use options in an RESP account? And the answer is no. I checked many times, the answer is no. And the second question is, can you have a self-directed RESP? And the answer is yes. So that's good. If you want to use a set and forget strategy, what I would do is just to put money into 2 index funds. So you don't need to make it too complicated. Now, if you're more knowledgeable about index funds, then of course you can put it into around 3 to 5 index funds. That probably covers all your bases already. The first one is S&P 500, SPY, which approximately gets 10% a year. And the second one is SPXL. So even though you cannot use options in RESP, you should be able to invest in SPXL, which gives you around 3 times the return than SPY. So it's approximately 30% return a year. So then the question is, look, how much do you actually need to invest in the beginning so then you can pay for your child's education near the end? Because obviously, if you're looking at something like UBC, let's say my kid is planning to go to business school like I did, then the education expense is approximately $10K a year for 4 years, which is $40K. Now, if my kid wants to do a master's degree like I did, I can get the corporation to pay for it, which happened to be the case for me to pay for partially. If I, as the parent, need to pay for the master's degree for my kid, then I'm looking at around another $10,000 per year for 2 years. So that means in total, the post-high school education is approximately $60K, unless he really wants to do a PhD, which I don't foresee it being a requirement. So, okay, if we take a step back and we work with this number, there's actually an important assumption we need to include, is that the historical tuition cost increases way faster than the inflation rate. If you look at the data, let me see if I can pull it up here. You can see the tuition cost back in 1970 was approximately 10K, and now in 2020 or so, it's 30-something K. So even though if this is not adjusted for your specific state, I know in US it's more expensive, in Canada it's cheaper, so on and so forth, you can see the cost actually 3 times over this period. So whatever assumption you use today, you should actually be prepared for it to be doubled, if not more. So let me just step back and calculate how much you need in the end. Now, if my kid is going to UBC, then it would be $8,000 per year, $10,000 if it is business school, for 4 years, which is around $32,000. Now, if my kid is going to Harvard, please God, if my kid can go to Harvard, I would support him. It would actually be $50,000 a year for 4 years. So what I didn't say here is actually $50,000 US versus $8,000 Canadian. So there's actually a giant gap here, and that means I would need to prepare $200,000 for the kid if the kid wants to go to Harvard. So it's an enormous amount of money today, and this number is going to double when my kid is around 18 years old. So when you think about that, then, that is actually a lot of money people need to save up for it. Now, of course, we can also consider scholarships, but since we are doing long-term investing so early on, we can exclude that assumption. And only if they really need the scholarship, then okay, yeah, you go get scholarship because we don't have enough money. We assume you invest in the very beginning, and you don't need to put any monthly contribution. If you get 10% return a year, then you just need to put $6,000 at age 0 with no monthly contribution, leave it in S&P 500 for 18 years, you will be at $32,000. So that is the first bullet you're seeing under Eric's comments. Is that if you want to prepare the kid to go to UBC Sauder, then all you need is to put $6K when your kid is born into S&P 500 and call it a day. So there's no need for a complicated investment strategy. There's no need to trying to actively manage your portfolio. There's no need to try to remember to put money towards your kid's education plan. Just put $6,000 in the account, leave it alone for 18 years. You're done. Okay? Now, if you are able to get 30% return a year, then it is even a more outrageous number. So you just need to put $300 in age 0, leave it alone, no monthly payments, and then in 18 years, your kid will have enough money to cover all of his tuition expenses. Now, you might be wondering, how is it possible? It is because when you're looking at SPXL, it is a 3 times leverage index funds. That means if S&P gets 10%, SPXL gets 30%. And if you get 30% every year for 10 years, then it will 10 times. And if you do it for 18 years, then it will 100 times. So that's why you don't need to put that much money into SPXL. You just need to put a little bit of money and let compound interest do its work. So that means, for example, let's say your child is born this year, 2022. Then you put $6,000 into SPY, which you can in the first year, and you put $600 just for some buffer room into SPXL at age 0. You're good. You're good. You're done. Your kid can go to probably any university in Canada doing all right. And all the tuition is covered for. You can probably have a little bit of buffer room for textbook or something. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And it's quite simple once you have the strategy down. Now, if you cannot put $6,000 this year, just split it across 2 years, $3,000, or whatever works for you, and then you go from there. Now, what if you want your kid to go to Harvard? What if you are the ambitious parent, the dragon mom or dragon dad, and you want your kid to go to Harvard, and you need to prepare for that. So that means you need 200,000 USD, and that is an equivalent of 260,000 Canadian. So that is a little bit more aggressive, so you need a lot more money upfront. So if you get 10% a year using just SPY alone, then you need to have 45,000 in the very beginning at age 0. So that means you need to have enough money to maximize your entire lifetime contribution limit for the kid at year 0, S&P 500, then it is all taken care of. Now, if you invest in SPXL, which is the leverage index fund, then you need to put 2,500, so a much lower amount and no monthly contribution again. And if you are talking about allocation, then you would use both strategies and put 45,000 into SPY and 5,000 into SPXL. So that alone, as long as your kid doesn't go to university in 2008 or when there's a market crash, then it should be doing fine. Now, you will be near the max contribution in the beginning of the child's life. And this means if you plan for your child to go to Harvard, you need a large sum of money early on. And you need to create some sort of monthly contribution plan if you don't have that amount of money, which then you can work it out. Now, the calculation I made here is only for an undergraduate degree. If you want your kid to go to master's degree, then you need to contribute more money. So for the UBC plan I created earlier, I didn't maximize it, so it's fine. And it is possible that your kids will get scholarships as well, and that can ease your burden, or your kid can pick up a part-time job somewhere, like a supermarket, which I did. So if you contribute more over time instead of age 0, it will only make it safer and make it more certain that your kids will grow up and get the tuition fee he needs to become educated. So one more important consideration is that right now I did not price in an increase in tuition, which you know it will happen for sure. And the tuition cost will likely be double or even triple. So if that is the case, then the max RESP will not be able to fund a Harvard education. That means you need to save even more money for your kid to go to Harvard. And you'll need to take a lot more risk early on if you need your kid to go to Harvard, meaning that you need to allocate more money to SPXL instead of SPY. And if you want your kid to go to UBC and you want to be extra safe to make sure that he can get there for sure with the tuition fully covered for, just double the investment. Instead of 6K, just put 12K in, and then you should have more than enough money for your kid to go to UBC. So the last consideration here is that right now I only told you about SPY, SPXL as the simplest example. And of course, there are a lot more other index funds. You just need to pick a couple of good ones and stick with them. Then you are pretty much good. Now, it is possible to pick stocks. It is possible to do index fund rotations or whatnot in an RESP account, but then I just don't think it is really worth the time and energy to do so. I think it is much better to allocate your time to actively manage your TFSA account or perhaps your RSP account or a regular account when you have that excess cash left over. So that is pretty much it for this video. And hopefully this video helped you plan for your kid's future. And if you are looking to plan for your retirement for your TFSA account or your RSP account, then you want to check out the free training I have below on how to get 30% return, where we dive into some of the more advanced investing strategies. So that is where we look to have long-term growth of 30% return a year, or creating a monthly passive income stream that is also 30% return a year. So you can, register for the webinar below. It is 3 hours long. And within there are mainly 3 things. So first, I talk about the major mistakes that investors make. Second, I will also introduce you to one of the first modules of Investing Accelerator on how to use technical analysis to find tops and bottoms. And the third one is 2 historical coaching calls where I show you step by step how I analyze investments and how I think about the significance of different investing strategies or analysis contributes to your success. So yeah, I put a lot of content in that video, so if you like, you can check it out. If this is your first time here, click subscribe, like, and let me know if you have any additional questions related to RESP. I'll see you in the next one.